Kaiser, and I'm the Media and Communications Manager for Midmark, and I'm also the chair of the Professional Development Committee. Session. It is called Lead at the Front of the Room with Confidence, and confidence is easy to achieve. Find out what it takes to own the space at the front of the room like a pro, and it will be more of an interactive session designed to from the inside out. I would also like to recognize CME for their generous sponsorship of the session, and we do really appreciate your support. And it is my pleasure to introduce to you Shannon Trahan with CME, and she will do the honor of introducing our next speaker.
Hello. Sara Krisher is a confidence coach, speaker, trainer, and the founder of Stand Tall, a confidence building company. She is dedicated to teaching leaders how to lead from the front of the room with confidence. Sara's 16-year career in commercial office furniture sales offered her the opportunity to experience hundreds of small company vendor interviews as well as multi-million-dollar projects. Sara is the former director of Spoken Impact, where she led the speaking group program. She worked with over 240 business professionals in the Twin Cities in improving as presenters. Sara is a professional member of the National Speakers Association. She is a master-trained coach through Learning Journeys International Center of Coaching. She holds the Associate Certified Coach credential through the International Coach Federation and is the 2017 president of the ICF Minnesota chapter. Welcome, Sara Krisher.
Great job, by the way. It's intimidating, isn't it? I heard this all the time when I was growing up. Stand up straight and put your shoulders back. Stand up straight and put your shoulders back. Stand up straight and put your shoulders back. Any guesses on who told me that 100 times? My mom. I owe it all to her. She nagged the crap out of me. But I think the reason why it didn't stick is because the last thing I was confident. I grew so fast that I was 6'1" by the time I was 13. Do you remember those years, ladies? The last thing you want to do is stick out like a sore thumb. Awkward, not super cute, boy haircut, like, I don't know the choices I made back then, what that was all about. But yeah, it all grows character. So the whole point of that story, you know, when it finally stuck, when I finally stood up straight and put my shoulders back, what I realized was it doesn't take confidence to do that. You can do that even when you don't feel it. But you know what happens is when your body is in a confident position, it starts to indicate to your brain, we got this. I'm confident. And what happens is your testosterone goes up and your cortisol goes down. You start to become more confident. Yeah, I know it's simple, but it's one of those things like, oh. And then what happens, people start looking at you like you know what you're talking about. Are you running the show? No, I'm just standing confidently. That's all I'm doing. People ask me all the time if I'm the speaker. Even if I'm not the speaker, I'm like, no, this is what I do good. Stand with confidence. But it doesn't take confidence to get there. So we have that choice. We have the option to be able to say, I know how I'm going to hold my body, and this is what it's going to be like. This is what it's going to feel like. And confidence is one of those things where if we don't have it, we actually have to step into a place where there's no confidence or very little confidence before we start to feel it. So I always say action comes first, then the feeling. We always hold ourselves back from doing stuff because we're like, you know what, I don't feel confident enough. When I feel more confident, that's when I'll do it. That's when I'll step into that scary place. And I want to encourage you, if there's nothing else you take away from this presentation today, take away that one thing. And that is that the action comes first, and then the feeling of confidence comes second. Okay? Why is this important to me? Well, I started a business called Stand Tall. This is my business. I teach leaders, and I will guarantee you that if anybody wants to come to the front of the room, they are a leader. I don't care what position you hold, but if you are a leader, there's a time in your career, in your life, you're going to be asked to go to the front of the room, in front of the group, and share what your thoughts are. Talk to the department about where we're at. Share your project summary with us. Speak on a panel. You're the expert on all this stuff. Come to a conference and share with us. Welcome, come on in. That's all right. We're having a party, so you're welcome. You're going to be asked, if you're a leader, you're going to be asked to come to the front of the room, and I hope you say yes. I didn't start out this way. I wasn't always confident at the front of the room. I was actually scared to death of it. And if you had told me 10 years ago this is what I'd be doing for a living, I would have laughed you out of the room because it wasn't anywhere in my sights. But I struggled with it so much that it kept becoming, it was like a reoccurring theme in my life of how am I going to get through this? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? How am I going to show up and do what I need to do and get through this? And I truly do feel like I'm a leader, but I didn't have the skills to be able to do this. And I know now that you can, at any stage, take this on and you can become the kind of leader in front of the room that you want to be. All right? This is something that you have control over. You can do this. I know because I have done it. And you get to the point where you can enjoy it. Now, it takes some time. But once you get to the point where you enjoy it, now you can light up a room. Now you can actually get your message across. Now you can engage people in a way that you haven't before. And there's so much freedom in that. When you connect with your material, you connect at a heart level, you can share for an hour and feel like it was the greatest thing on earth. And that's what I want to teach you to do. And I'm going to teach you 3 things today. Well, more like 4. So this whole hour is going to be jam-packed, but I feel like these things that I'm going to teach you are the things that you need in order to get kind of over the hump of fear. And I don't want to assume that any of you have any fear related to this, although in a group this size, I would guess probably at least 40% of the people here are having a little bit of like, oh, yeah, I know what she's talking about, yeah. Sorry, Barry, I know that I just pounded on the microphone. He told me not to pound on the microphone. And what did I do? Every time I ask, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. It doesn't matter if you're, I don't know, like what position you're in. The position you're in doesn't matter. The years of experience you have under your belt does not matter. This is a skill that is non-discriminative. Like you will not find any person in here that has reached a level that can come up here if they haven't experienced it and haven't worked towards it and haven't really honed that skill, all right? So wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, whatever you're not doing, it's okay. You're at that place and you can move from there. The smartest people are actually the ones that have the hardest time because they're like, I really want this to be perfect. And perfect is not something that we strive for up here. It's really more about being comfortable. Because you're comfortable out there in the hallway talking to colleagues, you're comfortable talking to your friends, your family. That comfort level is what I would love to see up here. That comfort level brings about eye contact, it brings about gestures. It shows, confidence shows up in that confident, comfortable conversation. Say that 3 times fast. That's what we're looking for up here. Now, we have a small enough group, so we have time to get everybody up here on your feet and do some presenting. How's that sound? We don't have enough time, I'm just kidding. But for those of you that had that little freak out right now, I want to make a point. This is really important, you guys. Nothing in the room changed. Not one thing in this room changed, except for you got some information that you would have to come up here and speak. Tell me that's not in your mind. It's all up here, you guys. I want to know why it's important to you. So for the next 2 minutes, I'd like you to get in groups. If it makes sense to do a pair, great. If it's 3, great. But just for a couple minutes, talk about why is this skill set important to you? This, leading at the front of the room with confidence. Why would it make a difference? Would it make a difference? Maybe you don't care, but you're here because, I don't know. You're probably here because you want to be. So just have that conversation, and then when you're done, I'd love to hear some feedback. So go ahead. There you go, this fell. Yeah. There's a couple ladies behind you. You guys are a chatty group. I love it. Take about 30 more seconds. 30 more seconds. All right, let's bring it back to the front here. I'd love to hear what you discovered. Let's take about 3, maybe 4 people, and let's hear from you. What makes it important? Who wants to share? Just raise your hands, and then I'll call on you. Who wants to raise their hand and share why it's important to lead at the front of the room with confidence? What makes it important? Come on, ladies. Come on up here and share this. Yeah, I saw your hand go up. We're going to be brave today. Is this working? You guys here? Okay.
A couple of things, just kind of as a disclaimer, I've given over 1,000 lectures, and I had a company that when I sold it to Shine, was the biggest CME company in the world in medicine and dentistry.
Oh my gosh.
And I used to have a bunch of specialists, I'm a specialist, I used to have a bunch of specialists lecturing for me. And these were individuals who were really good in the OR and good with patients, but when they had the idea of speaking to colleagues, they were terrified. And one of the things I mentioned, and you just mentioned the same thing, it's so important about being yourself. I would have them come early, at least an hour early before any presentation, because the first thing you have to do is make sure the audiovisual is tight.
Yes.
That's so stressful, okay? Secondly, a good tip, the way to alleviate anxiety is have yourself greet people as they come into the room.
Ooh.
Hi, I'm Dr. Koch. What are you here for today? What do you hope to learn today? The reason this is so important to create that relationship is that so that when you stand up and there's 400 people out in front of you, and you look at them, you no longer see them as an adversary, you see them as a buddy, as a friend. And I found that it really helps reduce the anxiety for people who don't really love doing this. You obviously love doing this, I love doing this, but for a lot of people they don't. But I think that little tip, and just what you said, be yourself, reduce the anxiety, helps you to deliver the message. And for me, my background was all the products I had developed, surgical and non-surgical products. So delivering the message to people, the greatest way I could have docs buy into my techniques and products was credibility. That's why, as all you probably know, I never trashed individuals. I never trashed other surgeons, other products. I said good things. But at the end of the day, what made them think about buying and utilizing my products was the credibility.
Well, thank you. Give her a round of applause. Wow, that was way more than expected, but very well done. Yeah, thank you. How about a couple more of you? You don't have to be a shining star like this one. Come on up here. Yeah. Why is it important?
It's important because oftentimes at our company at Vizient, we have one shot to get across that message, and if you don't communicate correctly or you don't know your messaging or your content, then it can just kill the deal. So yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Very good. And you get a round of applause for coming up here. Isn't that awesome? All right. How about somebody from this side of the room? I'm really looking to even it out a little. Represent here. Awesome. And what's your name? Cindy. Awesome. Thank you.
You are tall.
Yes, I am.
I think most of us in the room are women. Sorry, there's one gentleman over here that I see. Chris. I think especially as women, because a lot of times we're the only woman in the room in a management meeting, and you have to exude confidence. If you don't, no one will listen to you, and you might not be invited back again. So.
Awesome. Yeah, give her a round of applause. There are so many reasons to be at the front of the room and to share a message, and some that I often get too have to do with vision and strategy and exposure, and I mean the list goes on. I don't think I actually got to why it's so important to me when I was blabbing earlier. But one of the reasons why it's so important to me is that this quote sums it up really great from Robin Williams. No matter what people tell you, words and ideas change the world. Let that sink in. No matter what people tell you, words and ideas change the world. And you might not think that your little presentation that you're giving is going to change the world, but you have no control over that. It's only your job to get the message out. What happens from that point on is not in your control. It is our job to get the message out. All right? There's some confidence boosters. So the next time you give a presentation or you feel those nerves kick in, I mean, it doesn't have to be at the front of the room. It could be at a conference table. It could be on the phone. Shoot, it shows up all over the place. I understand this. So when that happens, when that stress response kicks in, those confidence boosters, and I'll show you this card, looks like this. On the back, there's 20 confidence boosters. What I'd like you to do is just identify 2 or 3 that you could use in your next presentation that really resonate with you. This is a strategy for you, a strategy of keeping that stress response at a minimum. So go ahead and identify 2 or 3 and just skim it over. And then when you're ready to share, I won't make you come to the front, but I would love to hear a couple that are really resonating. And the room goes silent. This is a special tip for anybody that is looking to present and use more engagement. If you ask people to read, the energy goes down. If you ask people to share, the energy goes up in the room. So just keep that in mind. If you want to get that energy going, find ways to get people to collaborate. All right. Anybody find a couple that they think, oh, I might be able to use these? All right. What'd you get? Love it. Love it. And that actually brings me to, remember when I was getting introduced, I stood over here? Who thought that was weird? Raise your hand. Okay, thanks. Jim, you're in trouble. You're out of here. No, but it doesn't cause any issue or problem for me to stand here while I'm being introduced. In fact, it gives you a face to put with the name and the information that's coming at you. But what it does for me is it allows me to stand, breathe, just get my body in a confident position. When you go from seated to standing, that little transition can be really, really detrimental if you're already nervous, all right? That perspective that you get of the eyes on you, the people in their seats, if you can start getting that perspective earlier and come up here and take a look at it before you have to go out in front of everybody, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're laughing. It's true, isn't it? But what happens is all of you have energy, and you are all looking at me, and all your energy is coming to me like a big wave. So if I don't know how to accept that wave of energy, it can knock me off my game. So I usually tell people, ground yourself first, look out at the sea of eyes, and just take it in. For you, it might feel like a minute or two, but for everyone else, it's probably 2 or 3 seconds. But just to get that feeling of, okay, I'm good. Yeah, you have a question? Oh. Yeah. Thank you, yes. Yes, she can pay more attention if I'm relaxed, and humor is a huge piece of that. If you can be relaxed up here, you have more of an opportunity to be humorous or funny if that's your natural self. I have a hard time with scripting funny. Every time I've ever done that, it's not gone well. Yeah, so I have to really be like present and just relaxed, and then funny comes, hopefully. Otherwise, it doesn't work very well. But for the most part, I just try to let it. But if you can add humor or be funny, the experience is actually better for your audience, and they can learn better when they're having fun. Isn't that interesting? We learn better when we're having fun. When we play, we have fun, we learn. Yeah, over here. That's a good question. You're asking me personally, or you're asking for the audience just in general? I have researched a lot of speaking, and a lot of speaking is pseudoscience, and it is made up, and it is splashed out there, and it is objective. It's you take what you want, you take what works for you. Now, the whole caffeine thing, I have been told that if you drink a lot of caffeine before you present, it's not good. It'll dry out your mouth. It'll rev you up. You're already going to be revved up. Is that what you want? Could be if you had a rough night. It could be what you want. But I'm a coffee drinker, so if I didn't do coffee, I would have a headache. So I'd rather have the first than the last. So it's one of those things where you kind of get into once you experience a few presentations, you realize, oh, I shouldn't be eating that before I go present. That was not a good idea. In fact, when I present, typically that day I'll eat very, very light. Like, my body doesn't require much food on the days that I'm presenting. But water, I drink water like a camel. I drink more water on the days I present than any other day in my life, and I'm still dry. So if I can figure out the answer to that one, then I will definitely make some money, because that dry mouth thing is real. It's for real. Yeah. All right, over here. Ooh, I love it. Yeah, this was a groundbreaking perspective buster for me, because our body recognizes exhilaration the same way it does anxiety and fear. So just think about yourself when you were a kid. If you went up on a roller coaster and you heard the click, 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 and then you got to the top and you were like, oh, yeah. Do you remember that feeling? That's exhilaration. You're enjoying yourself. But if you get that feeling before a presentation, you're like, that is not cool. That's fear. I'm scared to death. No, it's actually, you can call that exhilaration. So now when people say, are you nervous? I'm like, no, I'm excited. Because that's the more optimistic viewpoint. And it gets my head in a place where, nope, because I'm going to enjoy this. This is fun. All right. So the three things that people usually share with me is reasons why they won't come up here. I don't have the confidence. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to say it. We just address the confidence boosters. So hopefully you put together a strategy for yourself. That's what I really want for you, is that when you feel those feelings, you know you need to stand up, breathe deeply, and meet some people. I don't know, like have three things. I meet people every time I present. I go and meet people because exactly what you said. I want to know individuals they're in my audience, they're listening to me, versus, ooh, it's a mass of people. It's me and them. It's me against them. You know, like all of a sudden it's like scary. But if I think, oh, she's nice, she's got a great smile, and oh, she's got great eye contact, and she looks like my sister, I mean, suddenly I'm like, oh, these are all friends of mine. And we're just enjoying a conversation. And that really changes the perspective on speaking and exhilaration. All right, so the whole idea of I don't know what to say. Part of it is because we do a terrible job of teaching people how to create a presentation. And what I'm going to share with you is my 7 C's. This is a framework for putting a presentation together. You can do this for a 5-minute presentation, or you can do this for an hour long, 3 hours, whatever you name it. Any presentation you put together should have the 7 C's. And you'll see that on the back of your bookmark. You'll see it on the inside of the handout. Number 1, start with your critical point. If you don't have a critical point, then it's going to be really hard to put a presentation together because you're going to go, what do I need to add? What do I need to include into this? But if you have a critical point, you go, oh yeah, that makes sense, this makes sense, I can organize it, I can put it all together. My critical point is action first, feeling second. Next is captivate. If you can start with something captivating, something that's interesting, and get people listening right away, you're more apt to keep them throughout. So my captivate was the story, stand up straight and put your shoulders back. I mean, it can be something simple. It could be something a little intriguing, a question, a statistic. It only needs to be 2 or 3 minutes. It doesn't have to be long. But just get them interested. And then we go to connect. Connect is like, how do you relate to your audience? Whether it's your department, your company, a mixed group of people that you don't know, how do you relate? If you don't know your audience, maybe you can ask questions. How many of you flew in today so you're finding out, how am I like you? How are we like each other? We know that we're all professional women, except for a couple men. Jim and what's your name? Chris. Jim and Chris. We'll pick on you the rest of the time. I love it. You're welcome. You're welcome to stay here and learn as much as you can. Anyway, we want to connect, and then we want consensus. So consensus is like the agenda, if you think about it in that way. Typically, there's an agenda. We're going to go through this, 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 this. What about if we looked at it differently and we said, how would you like to come along with me? How would you like to identify what makes speaking important to you? If you guys could come up with a few answers to that, and if we could really figure out that this is important and then get some tips on how to make it happen, would that be good? I mean, does that make sense? And would that be a useful part of your day, a good way to use your time? Yes, awesome. So it's building consensus around what are we here for today? It's getting everybody else on board so that we can all go together versus I'm going to tell you this, I'm going to tell you that, And then you're going to learn this and learn that, and then you're going to go off on your merry way, and I won't know if you actually got it or not. Consensus is you come with me. We're going together down this path. And then after that is the core. The core is like the body of your presentation. That's where I have my 3 points. They all actually lead to this guiding idea of action first, feeling second. And really they're the blocks. So for me on this handout, I have them identified as I need more confidence, I need to know what to say, and I need to know how to say it. Those are the 3 main points that get people into action if they can get over those. All right? The core, I usually say just 3 points. Use engagement, stories, statistics, facts, whatever you need to do to support your points, but that's the core. And then commitment is, what are you going to ask them to do? They just listened to you. They just hopefully got motivated or inspired by you. What will you ask them to do from here on out? What will you engage them in? And how will they extend their learning beyond this hour? All right? Because if you don't ask them to do anything, they'll go back to their daily life and they'll get busy and they'll put the notes aside and they'll think that was good information and I really liked it and it was motivating, but I'm busy. I got to get back to life. So how do you ask them to incorporate what you just shared or what powerful thing that they took away? How do they incorporate it? And then the conclusion is like, how do you summarize what you just really shared? How do you wrap it all up at the end? Are you with me on the 7 C's? I mean, is this making sense? It's a framework, right? It's one of those things where you have the opportunity to create whatever you want inside of it. It just helps you put it together. And then the visual map, was there a question? Or was this just movement? Sorry. All right. And then there's a visual map technique for how to know what to say. So you know how when you are younger and you have to write a presentation and you go to a speech class and they tell you to write it all out? And you do a good job. You write this presentation. It's single-spaced. It's 6 pages long. It's written really well. You do a rough draft and another rough draft. And you're like, by the time you're done, this is something that could be submitted as an article. It's a well-written speech. And then you have to start learning it because just because you wrote it doesn't mean it's in your head, which is so frustrating. You just spent hours writing this, and now you have to spend more hours remembering it, trying to figure out how am I going to say it. And unfortunately, because you're learning it one way, you're reading it back to yourself, you're trying to memorize certain parts, you're only creating one neural pathway. And so you're really creating a groove, if you will, from A to B. Like, I want to say it this way, I say it this way, boom, I'm done. But what happens is you get into the experience, the opportunity of speaking, and the eyes come at you, the energy happens, the stress response, all of this, right-brained activity, you can't control the environment. Everything is just kind of like, you got to be here in the moment and you just got to go with things. That's not the same side of the brain that you wrote this thoughtful paper and in this controlled environment where it was really nice and quiet and you had all this time to think. No, and so for you to access the words is really, really difficult. And if you even memorize it, you get off track a little bit, you get off that one neural pathway you created, you're screwed. You're like, oh, I think I have to start over because I don't know how to get back on track. You've been there. I've been there too. The answer to this is a visual. It's drawing a picture instead of writing words. It is so simple, and yet I don't know why we don't teach this. So I don't use notes because I have that visual path created in my mind. I've drawn it out, and you can see it, this handout in front of you. You can see, actually I'm going to grab this bigger handout. I've created this visual path for myself in the 7Cs format, but all of these pictures indicate a story for me. They tell me in my mind's eye, like I know where I'm headed. And so if you're able to use a picture to represent a point or a story or something that you need to share, that one picture becomes your beacon, I guess. And if you have a bunch of pictures, now all of a sudden you've created a path. So the key is to use color, to use markers and make it come alive and draw the best you can. You don't have to be an artist. And create a path for yourself, because then when you're speaking, those pictures stay with you at the front of the room. You can see where you're headed. And you can also bring and lay the visual map here somewhere in front, and you can glance at it and you can see with your eyes where you're at and where you're headed, versus with words. You have to actually process. You have to read the words, has to go slowly through the process and then out the mouth. So it takes a little bit longer. Who thinks that they could try to use visuals in their next presentation? Awesome. Oh, good. It takes a little bit to get used to, but I kid you not, like one of you will be, maybe a few of you will be asked, hey, could you stand up and introduce yourself and the company and tell us what blah, 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 in a few minutes? And you're like, yeah, I can do that. And you're like, yeah, it's a great opportunity. And then you're like, I gotta go to the bathroom. That's what I do. I'm like, I need to think. I need to go to the bathroom. But now I keep a notepad in my purse, and I'm like, you know what? I just sketch out a visual path. I draw a picture of what it is I want to talk, like 4 pictures. Now I can do a presentation, feel pretty confident about it, and work my way through it with no problem. All right. So now we get to, well, how do you do it? So we talked about, I need more confidence. I need to know what to say. And now how do I do it? I get 3 questions all the time. I get more than that, but 3 that are like always popping up. And one is, why are you laughing at me? That's not the question, but okay, good. All right. One of the questions I get all the time are, what do I do with my hands? Because when you get up here, all of a sudden your hands become like this. Yeah, like, what's going on? What do I do with these? And it feels like it's not part of you. And then how do you make it look natural, It's hard. It's hard to be natural up here. I'm not kidding you. This is like I have my whole business based on how do you be yourself up here. It's tough work. But what happens is when we're scared, when we're nervous, when we got all these stress response feelings coming at us, it's easy to lock our hands in front of us. I get this a lot. And we lock our energy right in front of us. And what happens is the audience sees that as you're not confident. And like you learned earlier, we can choose how we show up. We can choose how we hold our body. So if you're going to choose to go with the default of your hands are at your side. The default is your hands are at your side. And yes, it feels awkward, and yes, you look weird. But what happens is you're like, oh, they're there for me to use whenever I need them. So inevitably, you'll have them down at your side, and then you'll have to explain yourself, and they'll come up, and you'll be like, it was this big. And yesterday when I was talking to so-and-so, and you'll be using your hands. But if you have them locked in front of you, that's where they stay. You don't use them because they're tight together, and your energy's circling your body. And if you open up and you use your gestures, that energy has a chance to basically leave your body. You can hand the energy back to the audience. Isn't that interesting? I mean, you can control the energy that you have in your body. If I'm on a big stage and there's a big audience, I might say, welcome. Because I'm showing you that I have that ability to take that energy. I'm giving it back to you. I'm living it and feeling it throughout my whole body versus tight and constricted right in front of me. Now, if you're giving a long presentation and you don't have a microphone to contend with, which is actually kind of fun, so don't let that bother you. What you'll want to do is not be too concerned about what your hands are doing as long as you're open and flexible and comfortable. You might have this voice in your head saying, oh, I shouldn't ever do this, and I shouldn't ever do that, and I shouldn't ever touch this, and I shouldn't, and you could drive yourself nuts with all the shouldn't do and whatever. But if you're comfortable, suddenly this is okay. This is okay. Whatever you do is okay as long as you're comfortable. And you don't do it for a long time because that gets distracting. And men, Chris, you're the only one left. Actually, Barry, you can learn something here. Don't put your hands in your pocket. Women don't usually do that. Men do. And then all they do is start getting jingly. And then everybody looks at their pants. So rule of thumb, just keep your hands out. We got a question back here. What do you do with a clicker if you got one? Is that what do you do? Oh. Oh, you think it's more comfortable looking if you have something to hold? Yeah. Oh. Okay, am I wrong? All right, if you're holding something in your hand and it's not a microphone, it's probably a clicker. But if it's not a clicker, just know that whatever you have in your hand, people are going to be looking at. And if you're clicking it, if you're holding it, if you're, doing anything with it, people are looking at that more than they're paying attention to what you're saying. It's distracting. Yeah. Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. Well, it's so funny. Right. I love it. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, we do stuff like that, though. We'll pick up little habits up here, and we won't realize. So that awareness is huge. And how do you become aware of something when you're not there to really notice it? So one way is to get a video done of yourself. That's a really telling thing. Another way is to ask a coworker or somebody you trust to say, hey, could you just watch me and tell me if there's anything like fatal flaws I need to be concerned with? And we can do stuff like that. Click a pen and not even realize. It's crazy what we can do up here. All right. So we talked about hands. Now the other question I get a lot is eye contact. Can I just look at the back wall? Do I have to look at the people? What do you guys think? You have to look at the people. Yeah. And you don't have to look at all the people at once. You can look at one at a time. One at a time. One. And you know what? Every time I look at somebody, I'm connecting with them. Isn't that crazy? Like, I'm connecting with you. I'm talking to you back there. She's smiling. I gotcha. I'm looking at individuals because partly it helps me understand where am I at in my presentation. Am I making sense? Am I connecting? If I'm not connecting and I'm scared to death and this is really uncomfortable for me, that just means I have more work to do. And once you get comfortable with the eye contact piece, once you get to that point where it's like, oh, now I get it. Like, now it's okay. Now I feel okay and comfortable with it. You'll never have to go back. Because until you get there, it's just part of your process, part of your journey. But they say 2 to 3 seconds per person on average. Like, just to start out with. Getting comfortable with landing on someone for 2 to 3 seconds is normal without being too creepy. Yeah, how do you handle it when people are not engaged? I just talk louder. Just kidding. Do you have an answer for her? Conference room. Okay. Both good questions. So we'll get back to your question. First, I want to address, so in order to get people's attention, you can do a couple different things. Depending on what your presentation is, it's kind of tough to know. You can go silent and just pause. Depending on how many people are in the room, maybe you do something for dramatic effect as far as your words. How many of you really find this important? I mean, what is, and you go up to the person that is, flaking out on their phone or something. So something around getting their attention without calling them out. Another way would be to get the audience to engage in the conversation that you're having or the presentation, the topic. Because usually what happens when people are disengaged, it's because they're not being challenged, they're not being included in the conversation. And I think that's the number one mistake with presentations today is we think that a presentation is one way. And if you can do a two-way dialogue, if you can get a conversation going, you're going to have a far better, more effective presentation than if you were to just get up here and talk for an hour. If you're at a conference table and you really want to project confidence and you're not standing, right? And that would be weird to stand. Okay, it'd be weird to stand. Again, I would project my voice. So I made fun of it, but I talk loud. And when you talk at a conference table and when you want people's attention, speak with authority. That means use less words. That means project your voice. So I don't know how, that's probably a whole nother workshop. But sometimes we, especially as women, we might start a conversation really softly. But if we start really with some impact, we'll be listened to, better. Like people will pay attention right now versus when you get going. Make sense? Okay. All right, we are doing good. That's a good sign. There's another one. How do I use my space up here? So that one comes up a lot because, I'm told I'm supposed to move, but what does that mean? How am I supposed to move? What do you mean move? And so I see some speech coaches. They give the advice of, hey, step forward, and then after a while step back, and then step to the side, and then step. Yeah, it's kind of like, well, you are moving, but you're not moving with purpose, and that's the point. With movement, you want to move with purpose. You don't want to move so much that it's distracting, and you don't want to be sporadic with your movement, because that's distracting. And if you have any question at all about movement, I would say just stand still. I would rather have you stand still and lock yourself down in place and be comfortable than to move around sporadically without purpose and not know what you're doing. And people are like trying to follow you. They're like, where is she going? Why is she going over here now? And yeah, so just, if you have to, just lock yourself in place, be comfortable. If you feel like moving, if it's, if it feels like, oh, maybe I should come over here for a little bit, then do that. It's okay. Now, as a rule of thumb, you'll want to square yourself off to your audience. I see a lot of people, when they're nervous, kind of do a sideways stance. And I think it's a protection piece. You got one foot in front of you. You're kind of in this boxing This happened, yeah, exactly. Usually it's more men that do that than women. Women usually do the, I hate to do this because I feel like I'm going to fall, but they cross their legs and then they stand up here and rock a little bit and does this look familiar? I don't know. It looks really weird for me, I'm sure. But I kid you not, women will they'll cross their legs and rock, or they'll do a stance like on their side. Yeah, I'm not good at this. But what it does is it projects a lack of confidence. So if you have to think about it, just do straight, shoulder width apart, and just ground yourself. That's all you have to do. You don't have to wiggle or move or anything. Did you have a question? Does somebody have a question up here? Okay. How are we doing? All right. I'm going to transition to, there's a comment card that's orange in front of you. I'd love for you to fill that out. This is my opportunity to see what is it that you're committing to. So beyond this presentation, what is it that you want to walk away with from today that you're going to work towards? And just put it on that top line. If you want to be in contact with me again, then fill out your information. Otherwise, just the top line is fine too. What I love to find out is what really resonated with my audience. So when I get home and I read through those, I go, oh, cool, they listened to me. I love it. And then I'd love to hear what some of you have to say about what you learned. Like, what's your takeaway? So we hear like 3 of you. What is your takeaway from today? Right here. Yeah, how do you cut out on the ums and all these other things when you're just using pictures? Yeah, you haven't figured out what your sentences are, so how do you know what you're doing, what you're saying? I do suggest that when you're creating that path that you do talk through it. So what I'll do is I'll actually, let's say my Captivate story, I'll practice that in the car. Actually, a lot of it's in my head because I'm thinking it through, but when I do speak it out loud, I'm doing random things throughout my day and I'm like, oh, I should think through that. And then what happens is I've done that with each section and then I start putting it together. So I find ways to bridge from here to here. I find ways to say it and each time it comes out different. So sometimes it's frustrating and I'm like, screw that, gah. And you just have to come back to it again later and try it again a different way. And really you're just trying to make the point. So when it comes to the day of and you're actually giving the presentation, it could be that you say a couple times. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with you saying That's natural and normal in everyday conversation, especially if you're trying to share information. It's when it's too much, it's when it's distracting, it's when it's getting in the way of your message that it's an issue. And typically it's because people don't breathe and they don't come up with transitions. So finding a bridge between this topic and that is going to help. And breathing helps. Just taking a breath. Let's do it. Wow, that was a good breath. That only took like 4 or 5 seconds, and that wasn't weird. We're not going to take that big a one every time, but the audience will let you breathe instead of say All right, so what are you taking away? Share with me a couple. Come on, shy ladies. It's not the end of the day yet. All right, we have back here in the pink scarf. Yeah. Yeah, so you know it might help you to get in that place besides the confidence boosters if you can at all sing to like some music. If I'm driving on my way to somewhere, I'll try to sing because that gets some of that vocal energy out. So if you're a musical person, you might go into the bathroom. If you see me in the bathroom, I'm having a party. So you might be singing to yourself in the bathroom just to get some highs and lows and get some of that energy out. Yeah. There was somebody else over here. Okay. Awesome. You promised to use that? Awesome. Yeah. You might have to give it a little bit of a twist, make it your own, because how it works for you is going to be different than others. That's one of the big takeaways here, too, is that your preparation might be different than everyone else's, and that's okay. It's trying to figure out, how do I need to prepare so that I'm ready? Posture's important. Yes. Love it. So I'll see you guys walking out of here with your shoulders back. Yeah, over here. Oh, good. Oh. Yeah. And they're always black stairs, so you're like, I can't see. Yeah. Yeah, that's super helpful when you have to. So like that whole preparation of having to step up to the stage and then walk over, that whole thing is super intimidating. If at all possible, take that trek beforehand so that you're already up there. Sometimes it's not always possible, but yeah. And maybe don't wear high heels when you have to go up those stairs. I usually wear flats or very close to flats when I'm speaking. Well, I'm tall, so I can, and all of you can. If it means either falling or wearing flats, you wear flats. This is strategy, people. All right, we have a few minutes. I'm going to close with a story. Not long ago, my daughter had a track and field day, and she was 10 at the time. And you remember when you had a track and field day at school? It's like when everybody got to do races against their schoolmates, their friends, and all the kids. It's like a blow-off day, so all the kids are amped up and excited, like, I'm gonna do really good today. And I'm sitting there watching on the field, just like watching life go by, because I'm like, oh, I don't know any of these kids, but this is fun. And one group of kids gets out of the gate, and they're just running, tearing ass down. Running really fast down the field, and they're hopping over hurdles. And one of the girls, she was in one of the front spots, and she hit her foot on the hurdle and fell flat on her face. I mean, she was there for the rest of the race. The race finished, and then teachers came out, and she was fine. She just had a really bruised ego and was really upset with herself, crying, and had to be hauled off the field. The next group of kids running out, like tearing butt down the field, and same thing happens, only it's a different girl, little taller, more awkward girl, kind of like me. I'm like, gosh, come on, like I'm seeing myself fall. I'm like, dang it, like you had a chance. But you know what she does? She gets right back up and keeps going. She trucks through that finish, and she finishes. And she's walking tall. She is proud of herself. The same thing happened. She finished. She moved on. She had an experience she could be proud of, and the other girl didn't. And I want you to think about that when it comes to speaking. There will be times that things don't go well. Things don't go right. We can't control it. And that's okay. You just get back up and you keep going. You keep going, because that's what matters. All right. Thank you. Have a great day. Yeah. Oh, I forgot. Thank you. You're such a sweetheart. Actually, I have 3 prizes because you guys have been so awesome. And I did plan this, and I forgot. and Suzanne, right? Susan? Susan helped me remember, so thank you. So what we're going to do is have you put your cards in this box. And Suzanne, see, I was close. I mean, see, you guys are tricking me here. So the orange cards, thank you. It's important to collect the cards when you actually want them back. So we're collecting the cards, and we're going to do a drawing for one of the 3 prizes. And the prize, do you want me to tell you what it is now? No. Okay, you want to wait? It's going to be a surprise. I'm so glad you remembered that. Dang it, that would have been, yeah, I'm glad you thought of that. Is it a long day? Lots of learning. It's exhausting to learn. Yeah. All right, Susan, why don't you draw? Yeah. Oh, we have another one over here? Oh, we have one more over here. All right. Here, you have this.
Who do we have? I may need to put my cheaters on.
Oh, somebody. Gilmore?
DeBaber? I can't see it.
There you
Okay.
are. How do you say it? Hinata?
Okay.
Pretty. It's much prettier
Great.
when you say it.
All right. Oh, that one doesn't have a name on it.
Oh, okay. Next one.
Tanya? Steinberger? Oh, Steinberger? Steinberger, okay. All right, one more.
Had a trouble there, huh? You got it. Oh, good.
Okay. Julie Preffer. Or chair of the board. Okay.
That's so gracious of you.
Okay, let's see, who do we have? Kristen Corbin? All right, great.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for coming today.
I'm gonna let him go. Christine Cashin starts right at 3:30, the keynote, and you don't want to miss her, so I think we've got about 10, 12 minutes.